Have you ever listened to someone explain something so clearly, so confidently that you just believed them, without even a second thought? Well, it turns out that feeling of certainty might have way less to do with their facts and a whole lot more to do with their delivery. And honestly, that's where things can get a little dangerous. Let's dive into the mental shortcut your brain is using that makes you a perfect target for smooth talkers.
We've all been there, right? You're watching a presentation or maybe a video online, and someone lays out an argument so smoothly it just slides right into your brain. The logic feels perfect, the conclusion seems totally obvious. So what's actually going on here? Why does the style of an explanation so often feel more important than the actual substance behind it?
Well, the answer lies in this really powerful mental shortcut. See, our brains are wired to save energy, and that creates a kind of cognitive bias that smooth talkers, whether they mean to or not, exploit all the time. This is what we're calling the allure of smoothness.
Okay, so there's a technical name for this. It's called the fluency heuristic. Now, fluency just means cognitive ease, basically how effortless it is for your brain to process something. The heuristic part is the shortcut, your brain's simple little rule. If it feels easy, it must be right. So an argument that's presented really confidently, with simple analogies and a clear story, well, it takes less mental work, so our brain just naturally prefers it. So here's the crucial mistake we all make. We confuse a person's presentation skills, their ability to tell a really good, smooth story, for their actual expertise. We think, wow, they explain that so well, they must really know their stuff. But think about it. A great actor can deliver an amazing monologue about being a doctor, but that doesn't mean they know the first thing about medicine. Fluency is a performance, not proof. And this bias leads us straight into something you could call the simplicity trap. We see something that looks easy from the outside, and we just assume it is easy. There's a perfect real-world example that shows just how fast that illusion can completely fall apart. Okay, so picture this. A psychology professor shows a class a really short 6-second clip of the band BTS doing a dance move. On screen, it looks so fluid, so effortless, simple. After watching it a couple of times, even in slow-mo, the students are super confident. They're all thinking, oh yeah, I can do that. But then, they get up to actually try it, and reality hits hard. Their hands are going the wrong way, their feet feel clumsy. What looked so simple was actually the result of thousands of hours of practice and incredible skill. The fluency of the performance created a total illusion of simplicity. And that's really the core lesson here, isn't it? The smoothness of any final product, whether it's a dance move, a perfect cake, or a really compelling argument, it hides all the messy, complicated work that went into it. We just see the graceful surface, and we're totally blind to the complex machinery working away just underneath. Getting a dance move wrong is one thing, no big deal. But this exact same mental flaw can have way more serious consequences. It makes us really vulnerable to misinformation, especially when something just sounds scientific. So let's put this to the test. All right, I'm going to show you 2 different explanations for how to cure a common skin wart. I want you to pay close attention and decide for yourself which one sounds more convincing, more legitimate, which one would you actually trust. Okay, take a look at these 2. Cure A sounds pretty methodical, doesn't it? It gives you a clear cause and effect. Cover the wart, block sunlight, kill the virus. It tells a nice, smooth, simple story. Cure B, on the other hand, kind of vague. A folk remedy with some specific chemical substance. It doesn't give you much detail, so which one seems more believable to you? You're ready for this? The answer is Cure B. This is actually referring to applying salicylic acid, which is a really well-documented and effective treatment for warts. And Cure A, the one that sounded so smooth, so logical, so science-y, totally made up. The virus that causes warts lives deep in your skin. It couldn't care less about sunlight or air. This is the fluency heuristic in action, and it's kind of scary. The story in Cure A was fluent. It was simple, it was coherent, and it was so easy to understand. It gave us a why. Our brain just latched onto that easy explanation and said, yep, that sounds right, even though it was completely false. The vague but factual one was a little harder to process, so we were more likely to just dismiss it. So we figured out the problem. Our brains are basically hardwired to believe smooth stories. So how do we fight back? Luckily, there's a simple but incredibly powerful tool we can use to break the spell. And it all comes down to one simple question.
The tool is just asking how. That's it. When someone gives you a smooth conclusion, don't just nod along. Ask them to explain the mechanism, the actual step-by-step process. How exactly does that work? How do you get from your starting point to your conclusion? See, true experts can walk you through the details, the tricky parts, the exceptions. But someone with only superficial knowledge, someone who's just repeating a smooth story they heard, they'll fall apart really fast. Their explanation will have these huge gaps because they never actually understood the complexity behind their own simple summary.
All right, let's take this new tool and apply it to a really well-known and persistent theory. And just to be clear, the goal here isn't to start a debate. It's just to practice the skill of building a detailed, solid explanation from the ground up.
So instead of just saying the Earth is a sphere, let's actually practice what we preach here. Let's try to build this step-by-step explanation. What's the observable evidence we have? And how do all those different pieces of evidence connect to form a single, coherent model of the world? A strong explanation is like a web of interconnected proof. For example, you have ships that disappear hull first over the horizon. That only happens on a curve. You have Earth's shadow on the moon during an eclipse, which is always a circle, a shape only a sphere can cast from any angle. The stars in the sky literally change as you travel north or south. And then there's gravity itself, which naturally pulls mass into a sphere. These are all separate, independent lines of evidence, all pointing to the exact same conclusion. And the contrast here is what's so important. A coherent model connects all these independent observations, the ships, the shadows, the stars, gravity, into one consistent theory. A weak explanation has to just ignore all that evidence or dismiss it with a single simple but completely unprovable claim like, it's all a giant conspiracy. Now that's a very fluent story, but it crumbles the second you ask, how? How exactly would a conspiracy on that scale even work? The details just aren't there. So, we've explored the trap of fluency, and we've learned the power of asking how. But now comes the most important part of this whole thing, turning this lesson inward and applying it to ourselves.
You've probably heard this famous quote, right? But it's often misunderstood. It doesn't mean that every truth can be boiled down to a simple one-liner. What it really means is that true, deep understanding gives you the ability to explain the underlying complexity in a clear step-by-step way. It's the difference between just reciting a summary and being able to actually build the argument from the ground up.
So I'll leave you with this final thought, a challenge really. We all have beliefs about politics, about health, about ourselves, about the world that we've accepted because they just felt right, or because the explanation we heard was so smooth and convincing. Pick one of those beliefs today and just try to explain it. Not the conclusion, but the how. How do you know it's true? What are the steps that get you there? You might just be surprised by what you discover you truly understand, and what might just be a smooth story you've been telling yourself all along.